Okay, it is 7 o'clock somewhere. No, it is 7 o'clock here. So welcome, everyone. Just a reminder, please turn off your electronic devices or on airplane mode or silent mode. I will do the same. That would be embarrassing. With that, I'd like for you to join me in Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So again, welcome all of you. Thank you for joining us this evening, and thank you for those who will be watching later on our YouTube. First order of business, I'm going to make some introductions, and you usually start like here and go there. I was going to start with our chief, but he's busy closing the door. So, Chief, you're always last, so this time I thought we'd go first. So with us this evening, we have our Chief of Police, Paul Falls. And then next to him, we have our City Attorney, Ron Beatty with Kennedy and Graven. And then we have our Community Development Director, David Abel. Brian Grimm is our Finance Director. Jasper Krugel is our City Administrator. I'm Lisa Whalen, I'm the Mayor. And then we have council members present, Pam Mortensen, John Chumperlin, Ann McGregor, Kathleen Refkin. And then on the end, we have our City Engineer, Allison Fauski with WSB, our Director of Public Works, Gary Peters, and then on the last table, we have our City Clerk, Don Motzko, and she is also our official minute taker for this evening and every evening. Thank you. With that, are there any changes or additions to the agenda? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Refkin, and Mr. Chumperlin seconded that. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, motion passes 5-0. So this evening we have a special presentation. We have Brian Blatch. I think that's how you pronounce it, right? He is the senior water resource manager for Three Rivers Park District, and I know you work with the Pioneer-Sarah Creek Watershed Commission as well. Thank you for joining us, and you have a presentation, so please.
Hey, thank you, everybody. I'm Brian Block. I'm the Senior Manager of Water Resources for Three Rivers Park District. And I appreciate you allowing me to come this evening and speak about a project that we've been partnering with Pioneer-Sarah Creek Watershed Commission over the past several years. And that is the Whaletail Lake South Basin Alum Treatment Project. And this project was first identified in the Pioneer-Sarah Creek Watershed Team DL that was approved by the EPA in 2017. Since the approval, the city of Minnetrista also was a stakeholder in that overall process of the development of the TMDL as well as the approval of it. And since the TMDL has been completed, the Park District and Pioneer-Sarah Creek have been also monitoring the past several years and monitoring the lake and using this data to develop a feasibility study to implement this particular project. One of the requirements by the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency is that all alum treatments that are completed in the state of Minnesota has to have a feasibility study done for that to be approved. And so the data that's been collected over the past several years has been used to develop this feasibility study. In addition to that, the Park District and Pioneer-Sarah Creek Commission are in the process of filling out a grant application for this particular project. And so this grant application will be requesting grant dollars to fully implement this as part of the overall project. So with that, we'll get started here. Okay, so before we dive right into the alum treatment, I kind of need to talk a little bit about Whaletail Lake. It's about 456 acres, located in the city of Minnetrista. One of the things that we found out when we were doing the TMDL is that looking at the overall definitive lake depth data of the lake, that it was determined that the lake has two distinct basins to it. that meet different water quality standards. The South Basin, the smaller of the two, about 156 acres in size, has a maximum depth of about 23 feet and an average depth of about 12 feet. And this qualifies the lake as being classified as a deep lake, having to meet deep lake water quality standards. The lake also has a fringe around the entire shoreline that is about less than 15 feet in depth. And this area, we call this the littoral zone. This is the area that supports aquatic plant growth. Under clear water conditions, you can get quite a bit of plant growth that occurs there. In contrast, the main basin of the lake, what I call the North Basin, is larger in size, 370 acres. It's also been classified as a shallow lake, a little bit different than the South Basin. And the 100% of the surface area of the lake is considered littoral area. So the lake is shallow enough to the point where, under clear water conditions, it can provide an opportunity to have a diverse native plant community throughout the entire portion of the lake. So with that, the lake being classified as having two distinct basins, and one classified as a deep lake and the other as a shallow lake, the overall state water quality standards that have to be met are different for each classification. And as you can see there, for the South Basin, the numeric values that have to be met in order to meet those state standards are a little different than what you would see for the shallow lake. What's important here, though, and worth identifying, is that the primary nutrient that is affecting the overall surface water quality of the lake is phosphorus. And that is the driving nutrients that basically determines the overall water quality. So phosphorus concentration is the first parameter that the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency looks at when they are comparing the lake to those state standards and determining whether it's impaired or not. The next two variables, chlorophyll A and Secchi depth, those are what we call response variables. And what I mean by that is when a lake has an excessive amount of phosphorus in it, it tends to have severe algae blooms. And under those conditions, during the summertime when you have severe algae blooms, you have poor water clarity that tends to develop. And so there's numeric standards that are also assigned to those other two parameters. Chlorophyll A is an indication of how much algae is in the water, and Secchi depth is an indication of water clarity. And so as you can see there, those are the standards that have to be met for each of those basins. And it's kind of unique to have a lake that has two distinct basins like that. Looking at the overall water quality of the South Basin, essentially, that red horizontal line that you see there, that is the water quality standard for phosphorus. And so anything above that is considered impaired condition, and anything below that is considered that the lake is meeting those standards. The red oranges histogram represents the phosphorus concentration averages for each given year there. And as you can see, for the most part, the overall phosphorus concentration is exceeded that red horizontal line, indicating that it is impaired for phosphorus. Now, the green horizontal line represents that chlorophyll A standard, which is again how much algae is in the water. And as you can see, the green histograms are also exceeding that. So this lake is also impaired not only for phosphorus, but also chlorophyll A. And then the blue horizontal line, it's a little bit different. Anything below the blue horizontal line indicates that it is impaired for clarity, and anything above that is meeting standards. And as you can see, clarity is meeting standards for about 3 of the years since 2008. Another thing worth noting here that since the TMDL was completed in 2017, the overall phosphorus concentrations have slightly improved in Whaletail South Basin. It's close to meeting standards in 2019 and 2021, but also is meeting standards for phosphorus concentration actually in 2020. The North Basin is very similar. I'm not going to go into the extent detail that I did for the South Basin, but for the most part, it is also exceeding the standards for phosphorus, chlorophyll. It is it has been in the past, has met clarity standards. But what's noteworthy here is the last 5 years of the lake since the TMDL has been completed, it actually, water quality has improved on this, on the North Basin. As you can see, it's actually, the phosphorus concentration is meeting standards right now currently. It is not, unfortunately, for chlorophyll-A, and it is, has been meeting clarity standards the last 5 years, 3 out of the last 5 years, basically. So anytime a lake that is put on the impaired waters list, and for the South Basin whale tail, the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency put it on the impaired waters list in 2006, and the North Basin was put on in 2008. So anytime a lake is on that impaired waters list, the Environmental Protection Agency requires that a study be done called a total maximum daily load study. We call that a TMDL. The goal of this study is to identify those different sources of phosphorus that are contributing to the impairment of the water quality. And so, and the other part of the goal of the TMDL is to determine how much nutrient load reduction is needed in order for the lake to meet water quality standards. So those are the two primary things that the TMDL does, in kind of in a nutshell. And again, it goes back to that watershed-wide TMDL that was completed in 2017. Looking at the South Basin, this is the breakdown of the sources of nutrient loading going to the lake. The three primary sources that are looked at in detail, one being the watershed, and this is essentially the amount of nutrients that is running off into the lake from the land area that is around, that drains to it. And so, in this particular case, the overall watershed only represents or accounts for about 12% of the total load that goes to the lake. The other portion that is relatively small is the atmospheric loading, and this is basically the phosphorus that is deposited on the lake surface, just strictly that is within the atmosphere, and when it rains, basically the amount of loading that is winds up in the surface area of the lake itself. But the largest component here is the internal load component, and which represents about 80% of the total load of the lake. And this is what's significantly affecting the overall water quality of the South Basin. Internal load, I'll kind of get into a little more detail, but it's essentially the recycling of nutrients in the lake itself. Once the nutrients are in the lake, they are there to stay, and those nutrients can be recycled over and over in the lake, and it can cause water quality problems. So the other part of the TMDL that I mentioned, how much phosphorus load reduction do we need in order for the South Basin to meet water quality standards? And we did some modeling of, our in-lake modeling indicated that the phosphorus load reduction that's needed is about 180 pounds. So it's essentially, you know, the 180 pounds is what we're trying to target in order for the lake to meet those standards. One of the things that makes whale-tail South Basin an ideal candidate for an alum treatment is that alum has a really strong binding capacity to phosphorus. Once it immediately encounters phosphorus, it binds to it and it holds on to it, and it keeps it from being released into the water column. I'll talk a little bit more about alum here coming up, but since the internal load was identified as being 80% of that total load, that's one reason it's an ideal candidate for an alum treatment. The other part of it is that when you do an alum treatment, you want to achieve longevity of effectiveness. In other words, you want it to stay in the system over a long period of time, and you want it to hold on to that phosphorus over a long period of time. Things like watershed loading could potentially, nutrients coming in over the top of it, essentially can decrease the overall longevity of the alum treatment. In this particular case, though, the watershed is so small, it's a 4-to-1 ratio, lake area, watershed to lake area ratio, And the amount of watershed load going to this lake is very small. So the overall impact of the watershed load is pretty negligible in terms of the overall longevity and effectiveness of the alum treatment. The other thing too this watershed has going for it is that 36% of the land use is parkland, natural park reserve, 26% is wetland area. We have 2 parks that drain to the South Basin. One of those, Kingswood Park Reserve at the Park District, is our latest land acquisition of about 122 acres. It has Little Long Lake in it, and a lot of you that are familiar with Little Long Lake, it has exceptional water quality, probably some of the best in Hennepin County. And so that drains to the South Basin, so there really isn't much nutrient loading that's coming from Little Long Lake. It also has a conservation easement when we acquired the property that was already there, which limits any further development of that area. So we kind of have that going for it too. The other park is Gale Woods Farm Regional Park that a lot of you are familiar with as well. That's a 410 acre park, but only about 119 acres actually drains to the lake, and it pretty much encompasses the shoreline of the South Basin, basically. So. I mentioned internal loading and kind of go into a little bit more detail about the internal load and how it happens. So every summer when the lake stratifies, and a lot of you that have been swimming in deeper water, you notice your toes are cold and your upper body's warm. Basically that is kind of a sign of lake stratification, where you have warmer water up on the surface and cooler water near the bottom. When the lake stratifies in the summer, everything that is died and settled off into the bottom of the lake slowly decomposes, consumes oxygen, and that bottom water doesn't have much oxygen. And under those conditions, phosphorus can be released from the sediments under those conditions, especially during the summertime. And during wind and wave action, a lot of those nutrients that build up in the bottom can be resuspended up to the surface. And so that's the process of internal loading. When we estimated the internal load, as you can see, the bottom right chart there shows you the buildup, the orange line shows you the buildup of phosphorus over time in the bottom and how it drops and then increases. That's an indication of wind and wave action resuspending that material, and the concentration actually can kind of become lower and then increase again. And so that's kind of a visual perspective of how the overall internal loading occurs. But when we estimated internal load, we estimated about 424 pounds of phosphorus is essentially due to internal loading of the lake. We were able to determine this by collecting sediment cores in the lake. We went out and collected cores, brought them back to the lab. We simulated those conditions of no oxygen in the lab, and we were able to measure the phosphorus being released from the sediments under those type of conditions. So it gives us a phosphorus release rate, basically, and we use that to calculate the internal load. The other part of this, though, the valuable sediment cores, is that when we look at the phosphorus in the sediments themselves, we analyze the chemistry, and we're able to determine how much phosphorus is in the sediments. And the advantage for that is we use that information to determine our alum dose that's needed to bind all of that phosphorus. So alum basically is an aluminum sulfate product. It's a non-toxic compound, and you can actually buy it in a grocery store. It's used for canning of products. Quite frequently, people buy it all the time for canning goods. Basically, like I mentioned, it has a strong binding capacity to phosphorus, and when you apply it to a lake evenly on the surface and as it settles down into the water column, it's binding onto phosphorus, it's grabbing as it's settling to the lake bottom. Then it essentially forms, when you apply enough of it and it's evenly distributed, it forms kind of a blanket over the bottom of the sediments. And during the summertime, when the sediments release that phosphorus and are under anoxic conditions, that wet alum layer is there to bind it and keep it from being suspended back up into the water column. And so it essentially just keeps it tied to the lake sediments. It keeps it from being resuspended. And so it pretty much eliminates that internal load process altogether. And we determined from those sediment cores that we're looking at an alum dose of about 84 grams per liter squared. We're targeting using alum on the lake at depths greater than 9 feet. This is the area that the lake typically stratifies at, so we're focusing on the areas of the lake that has the highest amount of phosphorus being released from the sediments. And then we're also recommending a half dose being applied at 2 different times. Research has indicated that when you do 2 separate smaller doses, that the overall binding capacity of the alum to the phosphorus is significantly improved. And the other thing that we figured out too, based on our data that's been collected, as well as previous alum treatments that we've done too, that if you, the alum dose that's used here is to basically bind about 90% of the phosphorus in the sediments. And with that type of binding capacity, you should get a longevity and effectiveness of about 20 years on this particular project. I mentioned that we determined how much load reduction is needed to meet water quality standards. Well, this particular alum treatment will remove 381 pounds of phosphorus of the 423 that is internal load. So it's essentially achieving 90% reduction of that internal load. When we run our in-lake model situation for this amount of reduction in phosphorus, the in-lake concentration will change from 50 micrograms per liter to 26. And when you compare it to the 40 standard that needs to be met in the state in order to remove the lake from water quality from the impaired waters list, that's a pretty significant change in overall in-lake concentration. If you are able to achieve that and show that it is meeting standards over a period of 4 years, the lake will be removed off of the impaired waters list. The other thing too, there's a secondary benefit to the alum treatment. And water in this lake flows from the South Basin to the North Basin. And when you improve the water quality of the South Basin, you're essentially reducing that load that is being delivered from the South Basin to the North Basin. And we determined that there would be a 52 pounds of phosphorus reduction going to the North Basin. And this represents about 24% of the load reduction that's needed for the North Basin to meet those standards. However, the North Basin is already meeting water quality standards, and so this alum treatment will help ensure that the North Basin will continue to meet those standards. This is an example of an alum treatment done on Fish Lake in 2017. As you can see, the overall water quality conditions are very similar to what we're seeing on the South Basin. After the alum treatment, phosphorus concentrations are meeting standard, and that was just a half a dose for 2018 and 2019. The full dose is 2020, and as you can see, it's meeting standards for all 3 parameters. And we're seeing this in other lakes that we've done alum treatments on. Bryant Lake is off the impaired waters list now. Lake Rebecca is another lake that's off of the impaired waters list. Highland Lake we just recently completed this spring as well, and expect that one to be removed here shortly as well. So these are, as I wrap up here, these are our alum treatment costs, and it comes with a pretty shocking price tag. Looking at these cost estimates are based on our most recent treatment, Highland Lake, of basically alum per gallon is about $2.35 this past spring. We're estimating that you need to apply about 77,000 gallons of alum for the first treatment, and the second treatment comes out to be a cost of about $410,000. I factored in a 5 to 10% contingency because you never know what the price of alum is going to be in a couple of years from now. That could possibly change. So I built in a contingency of 5%, 10%. I actually got burned on that by the Fish Lake alum treatment, where I didn't take that into consideration, and I will now for all of the other projects. And so for this particular one, we're looking at, with that contingency, about $430,000 to $451,000. Now we're applying for Bowser grant funds of around $345,000 to $362,000. And that's based on the grant request. You have to have a 25% match. The partners have to pay for a 25% match in order for that grant application. Basically, the overall cost share for the partners that are currently involved with the different cost scenarios of 5%, 10%. The Park District owns 29% of the shoreline of Whaletail Lake, and so we would pay for 29% of the overall 25% match that needs to happen. So that'd be $25,000 to $26,000. Pioneer and Cedar Creek Watershed Commission have this project has been identified on their CIP, and they're based on their capital improvement program, they will pay up to 25% of the match. So looking at about $21,000 to $22,000 there for that. And then there's also a Hennepin County Stewardship Grant that I plan on applying for as well for this project, which is about $25,000. So the remaining funds that we need to make up here is about $14,000 to about $16,000 is the remaining funds that we're looking for financial support on this project. And so that's one of my purpose for coming this evening, is to kind of get an idea of, if the city would be willing to contribute or financially partnership on this particular project for, the possibility of, well, for sure, most likely removing the South Basin off the impaired waters list. And if we're able to continually improve the North Basin by the same alum treatment, it is possible that we might be able to remove the North Basin as well off of the impaired waters list too. So.
Thank you. There was a lot of information. Obviously, John and I understand it completely, but no, seriously, because we do this. What Brian, what we'll have to do is we'll have to put this on a work session for discussion, a lot of information to digest and be able to give you an answer back after we've had a chance to discuss it.
Just one question, Brian, on if you do the treatments in 2 different years, then is the billing using the grant funds, obviously, when the bills are due, is it the same billing to the city would be split, let's say, between some in 23 and some in 24?
You can do it that way if you'd like, or it could all be a lump sum at the end of the project in 2024.
Okay.
And so the total would be 14 to 16 for the total project, so you could split it 7 or 6, whatever. Okay.
Different budget.
Yeah.
rules.
Okay. Great. Thank you very much. Like I said, a lot of information, good information. So thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Yeah. So we'll move on to persons to be heard. If you are here regarding the conditional use permit, that is a public hearing, so you will be given an opportunity to speak on that when we get to that public hearing. So with that, let's see, we have David Goulet. And, okay, so I should tell you.
I only need 1 minute, so don't tell me.
You need to say your name and address for the record, and yes, you have 3 minutes.
Right. Dave Goulet, 1470 Westwood Drive. Just briefly, I wanted to drop off a couple documents to you tonight regarding the road project. I know we're having a meeting
Tomorrow.
and I hope
Yeah.
you guys are having cookies or something for that.
Yeah.
What I have here, and I just made 1 copy so we're not killing a bunch of trees, is I've got a map of all the homes in this area, and I've highlighted the homes on there of the people that are basically, to keep it simplistic at this point, are in favor of the roads being replaced, which they need to badly, but they're highly against or concerned, I would say, about the scope of the project and the amount of money that's being spent. So I've got the signatures to go along with the map, and if I
Yes, hand it to the chief. Thank
yeah,
you.
and just the reason I wanted to do this personally was that I know sometimes you get people that come and make a lot of noise all the time about everything. A lot of people are concerned about this throughout the neighborhood. This represents over 43 homes. If I wanted to work harder, I could have probably gotten just about everybody. So take that into consideration as we go down this path.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
We'll hope to see you tomorrow
Yeah,
as well.
sure.
Thank you. Then we have, Joe, you're here for the conditional use permit, so we'll hold off on that. Then we have Iris Hecker.
I'm Iris Hecker from 1240 Morning View Drive, and we're here over current concerns on the site plan submitted for the 1230 Morning View Drive. The current Minnetrista code states that landscape beds with lines are to be considered impervious. All the landscaping on 1230 Morning View Drive has linings under the rock or mulch. The rock on the west side of the house actually has actual solid plastic lining under parts of it. If calculated per the code, the impervious lot coverage is approaching 50%. And there isn't a swale on the west side towards our house, also specified by the plan that's been put in for approval. The torrential rain, all of the water will come onto our property. By the lake, there is a huge area of mulch with lining there also. And in a rain, there isn't a buffer. So that mulch will go directly into the rain. I'm talking torrential, 46 inches. And there's no way the impervious surface should be 50 feet from the high water mark per your current city codes, and we should enforce the codes as written. We need to protect our lake so that later we don't have to have a phosphorus type of thing for
You already do.
Yes, I know. We don't need that in the future, and this is what we're trying. We love our lake, and we don't think if you're going to 50%, keep the 25% coverage, please. And then also there's a code that states that the boathouse should not be larger than the boat that it protects. They have a 27-foot boat and they have a 40-foot boathouse. So it could be cut down to 32 feet with what they have. So basically, I'm begging you, Minnetrista has a great reputation, and we would rather be a Wayzata and Excelsior, not a Mound or a Spring Park. And if we don't enforce the codes that have been put in place, that's where we're going. And thank you, that's all.
Thank you, Ms. Hecker. Next, we have, I think, Tom Notch.
Good evening, I'm Tom Notch, 1250 Morning View Drive. Thank you for all your hard work you put in here. I passed out a couple papers for you. If you could look at the one that's highlighted in yellow first. And what I wanted to point out here are the impervious coverage that's on this site, 1230 Morning View. And according to my calculations, and I'm a structural engineer, been registered since 1980, they're at 45.2% right now. And that doesn't make sense to me. I know the code in the city in the Shoreland District is 25%. And I think we need to make sure that that's adhered to. The codes I had in the next sheet, these two sheets are stapled together. I just wanted to point out the lot coverage. It says the area lot occupied by impervious material, including but not limited to, and it goes through the whole thing. If you go to the second page there, the second line down, it says rocks with plastic liner, so that's a key one. And then if you go down to the fourth line, toward the end, it says landscape beds with linings. So both of those items are considered 100% impervious. And the survey that we got doesn't even identify them, which seems odd to me. In fact, the survey that the city is working off of, it was certified by Dan Schmidt, and it was certified on the 19th of July, yet they got 2 revisions after that point. I don't know what they were done on those revisions, but those were never certified. You know, and I'm an engineer, if you have a plan go out, your certification has to be up to date. So the city's plan that they're using isn't appropriate. So I just wanted to point that out. Also, I wanted to point out that you guys did an excellent job here at the last meeting where you turned down this project for the Bernardis. And it basically says, this is a letter article to Laker, but it says here, the current land hardcover of the property is 45%, and the council views Bernardi's project as an opportunity to bring the property into compliance. Again, I encourage you to do that in this case as well. And I know a number of months ago, Ann, you mentioned you're talking to Dave over here, and you asked him, well, what happens if things aren't right on this? Are they gonna make them change it? And after 3 times, Dave said, yeah, they'd have to fix it. And I really encourage you to go back and make sure this gets fixed. and it's important. We want to make sure we don't have all this runoff at 45% is ridiculous.
Thank you, Mr.
And if you
Notch.
could hold up on item I on your consent agenda tonight,
I
I
don't-
advise you to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Next, we have Grant Bernardi. We, okay, I think it's on consent. Okay. Next, we have I can't read it, I'm sorry. Okay, did you need to speak for the conditional use permit?
Well, I did, and actually, I don't necessarily need to stand up, but I can speak from here.
Well, that's, if you are here for the conditional use permit, we'll do that later. Okay, so you can speak then, all right? I promise. And then we have Mike Mahody.
Close. Mike Mahada. Mike Mahada, 1020 Bayside Lane. My wife Tina and I have lived there for over 20 years. So I was talking to Tina before I came here, and she told me, try to be positive. And I told her it's hard to be positive in a situation where lives are at risk. And we have that situation in Minnetrista. Minnetrista citizens' lives are at risk. It's on, and I spoke to this point at the last meeting, city council meeting. It's, there's a stretch of West Branch Road, County Road 151, just east of Maple Crest Drive. And if those of you are familiar with it, it's on the top of a hill. So cars going up the hill cannot see on the other side of the hill in either direction. That's a 45-mile-per-hour road, and right now there is no shoulder on the road. This road is regularly traveled by cyclists, bicyclists, kids, adults. Routinely, cyclists are going on this road, okay? So I've made this situation be known to the mayor and also to members of the city, so who have gone out, credit to them, to look at this situation, okay? So the thing about it is nobody disputes it's a dangerous and unsafe condition. The Director of Public Works does not dispute this. City Administrator does not dispute it. I've met with Hennepin County Commissioner who went on site to look at this as well. Also the Hennepin County Safety Program Coordinator. They agree, dangerous and unsafe situation, that they would not be willing to let their kids or themselves go on that shoulder, okay? So as a result of all this, there's been agreement, this road work is gonna occur soon in the next several days, actually, it's my understanding. And as a result of these interactions I've had, there's been, what I've been told, agreement to put 12 inches shoulder on that road, okay? So, I have a little demonstration, show and tell. This is 12 inches, okay? 12 inches is good for some things, but not for a shoulder on a road where cars are traveling 45 miles an hour. So a car can be doing everything right on the road, and they're on top of a motorist without adequate visibility. Okay, so why am I here after all this? Well, I just want to make sure that there's nobody in this room that can say they didn't know about this situation if somebody gets seriously injured on that road. And I have requested help from the city.
I'm going to give you about 10 more seconds because your 3 minutes are
I
up.
have requested help
Thank
from
you.
the city to work with Hennepin County to get this situation adequately addressed. That's not happened up to this point.
That has happened, so I'm going to respond to a couple of things, just because I think our residents need to know this. One, the city cannot force the county to make improvements to their roads. We have been, I know Mr. Peters, as well as Mr. Jasper, as well as myself. We've been in contact with the county. We've been encouraging them to do what they can, and they are doing what they can. This is not a reconstruct, and so I just want to make it clear, this is a mill and overlay. When you do a mill and overlay, you're not reconstructing the whole road, and there's a huge difference. When you do a mill and overlay, you try and address certain issues, such as you're talking about, and the county has said that they are going to be adding as large a shoulder as possible. Now, they have to work within certain confines. There's things such as right-of-way. If they don't have enough right-of-way, they would have to purchase more right-of-way. There's also grades that they have to consider. There's all these other things. At this point in the stage in the game, they are going to do whatever they can, but they may not get a 4-foot shoulder on there because they're supposed to start tomorrow. I'm not going to argue with you on this, okay? This is what it is. They are starting tomorrow. They are going to do a mill and overlay. They are going to restripe it with as large a shoulders as possible. They're going to go out as far as possible with the current situation. They are going to continue working on this. And the city and the county, and I would say you're correct, everybody here is concerned about the safety aspect. We are working on it. That doesn't mean that just because it's done, it's overlaid now, that they can't come back at some point and fix the problem. But this is something the county is going to have to address.
Right.
We will continue to work with them on that.
I'm not here
So,
to argue either.
thank
I'd
you.
like to make,
Thank you. Thank you.
points.
Nope. Thank you. I'm
I
sorry.
met
We
with
are
the
going to
county
keep,
10 years ago
we are
bring
going to
this
keep
their
this.
attention.
I understand that. And
There's
I understand.
7-foot shoulder at
Okay.
the rest of the
you are
rest
out
the
of,
road.
you are out of order.
It was taken
I'm
away
sorry,
by
you were
adding
given-
that turn lane. Restriping the road.
That's it. We're moving on.
Restriping the road can address the issue. The turn lane can be removed. It was put there that removed the shoulder.
Thank you. So with that, we don't have anybody else under persons to be heard. So we will move on to consent agenda items. Are there any that you wish to remove? All right, hearing none, then we have consent agenda item A. It's approve our work session meeting minutes from August 1st, 2022. B is approve our city council regular meeting minutes from August 1st, 2022. C is approve claims. D is approve an authorized execution of the purchase and sale agreement between the city of Minnetrista and Arnie and Jennifer Abens. E is an order, is to actually pass the revised ordinance number 478 and authorize publication of ordinance number 478 by title and summary, I believe. Thank you. And then F is reject the quote for the 22 pavement maintenance project. G is authorize execution of a road repair and escrow agreement with Richard Murphy. And H is authorizing execution of a pervious pavement agreement at 1230 Morningview Drive. And I is a resolution to approve a lakeshore setback variance at 3830 County Road 44. And J is a resolution to accept the quote and award contract for the site work at Friendship Park. I think that's it. That's it. A lot of them. A through J. Is there a motion to approve consent agenda items A through J?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Mortensen. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Chumperland. Are there any further questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify with aye. Aye. Motion passes 5-0. We'll move on to our public hearing. This is a conditional use permit violation at 6605 Wood Edge Road. I'm going to hand it over to Mr. Abel.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. Per direction that was given to staff at your July 18th, 2022 City Council meeting, staff has scheduled a public hearing for this evening to consider the revocation of the CUP, the conditional use permit at 6605 Wood Edge Road. As noted in the staff report, there has been an update since that meeting. The property owner, along with the builder, did submit a building permit application that was submitted to the city on July 27th, 2022. It has not been issued yet. It is still in the queue being reviewed. But as soon as that's ready to be picked up, we would notify the applicants of that. So it has not been issued, but we do have a building permit. Everything seems to be in order in terms of what we need to review it. at first glance. So I just wanted to note that. Also note that there was a timeline submitted by the applicant of construction that was included in your packet. There was also some supplemental information that I believe the council had previously asked for in terms of documents and numbers as such. That was included in your packet as well. Also in your packet this evening, there is a resolution that we put together that would revoke the conditional use permit for the council's consideration. So with that, we did advertise and notice a public hearing for this evening as directed back on the 18th.
Thank you. Any questions of staff at this time? Okay. What I'm going to do, does the applicant want to make any comments or statements at this time? Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open the public hearing. So this is a public hearing, so I'm going to open it, and anybody that wishes to speak for or against or have questions or comments may do so at this time. I'm going to start in the front and behind Brian there, the second row actually. You just need to come to the podium and you need to state your name and address for the record.
Jason Hurdler, 6555 Woodedge Road. My wife and I, we're next door neighbors to Larry, and our family room overlooks through the woods into his house. And we've been there since 2015, and I'm not really sure what this is all about, but he's got a really clean yard. We haven't noticed vehicles or anything or a mess of any sort, so we have no complaints. I just wanted to say that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, this gentleman here? Yes, you have to, I'm sorry, everybody has to come to the podium. You have to state your name and address for the record.
Mohsen Alamuzay, 6582 Willow Court.
You might have to spell that for us.
Mohsenaghamizar.
Thank you.
Do you remember that?
Yes. M-O-U-S-E. No, okay.
Because you weren't taking notes.
Yes. It's
Madam-
on the record though, so we can refer back.
Madam Mayor, council members, thank you for this time. We moved, I've been a resident at North Saunders Lake since 2004. My family and I moved there in the hope of a residential neighborhood, quiet neighborhood, peaceful neighborhood, and we found that. Our backyard backs up to the wildlife area that runs along the
Dakota Rail Trail.
exactly,
Yes.
the trail. And on a typical Saturday morning or early afternoon, it's a beautiful time to sit there and just listen to the birds and critters in the woods, or occasional work from a biker or a walker by. Our neighborhood is residential. It's not a commercial area. There are no commercial applications on West Edge, on Linwood, and on North Saunders Lake. Both repair, though, I would submit to you that is a commercial application. A home business, at least in my thinking, a home business is one that would be contained in a home. A daycare, a sewing operation, something like that. But both repair is outside of a home, and it's a commercial application. I would venture to guess that the original intent of this council, when it granted it in 2008, was not for a massive industrial production outside of a home, but to do something smaller than that. Our concern, and I've talked to my neighbors about this as well, is the peace and the quiet and the serenity, and of course property value. This application is I believe that offers a negative impact on our property values. And we've made significant investments in our homes, and would not want to see an industrial application behind our homes with perhaps noise pollution or pollutants or such to negatively impact that. The original CUP application, when it was granted, had a provision requiring a building to contain this operation. That was in 2008. We're in 2022 right now, 14 years later, and it hasn't been done. And I do understand that the owner has submitted a plan, but 14 years later, at a threat of revocation of the license. that leaves something to, to kind of think about as far as that. So I would wish that the city, in its infinite wisdom, to not allow to further degrade our neighborhood, our residential neighborhood, where again, peace and serenity and quiet prevails is what everybody's looking for over there. And I urge you to revoke the conditional use permit.
Okay, thank you. Next row. Mr. Stepniak, do you want to start?
My name is Joe Stepniak. I live at 6550 Wood Edge Road. I'm right across the street from Larry. And I want to thank everyone here for serving our community. I know how much work is involved in it, so I really appreciate it. A couple things. I've known Larry 18 years. I'm one of the oldest residents on that road.
You don't want to say that.
Okay.
You've lived there the longest.
I've been there the longest, let's say. And in my entire year, Larry has gone through a lot of things with his original house burned down, which could have caused delays and whatever. But helping him through that and helping him through all the traumas he's gone through, he's really an honest, straight up citizen, will do whatever he can within his means. You granted his conditional permit back in 18 years ago. I'm wondering why all of a sudden it's being revoked. I heard some of your comments, which I didn't realize, but he is in the process of taking care of that. Out of the entire time I've been there, I've never had a problem with any of the boat traffic, but anyone who has a boat knows that when you bring it to service, you bring it, you drop it off, you leave. Sometimes you got 5, 6 boats sitting there before you can get to it because you're working on one boat. He gets them cleaned out, he gets it off the property as fast as he can. And even when it comes to storage, cleans it up. When you got boats standing there, he gets them out as quickly as he can. So it's not like a big commercial production there. And the only time you're gonna see any boats on the property is in the winter. I'd really like the council to think about this because I really hate to see you revoke someone's livelihood, okay? I'm in for Larry keeping his business there and keeping it running. I have no problem with, there's hardly any traffic on the road as it is. So please take that into consideration.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Mr. Stepniak. And then the gentleman that wanted to speak earlier.
Well, I really didn't, but I will.
Okay, all right.
Thank you again, I appreciate your guys' time.
Again, your name and address.
So,
Thank you.
Ken Dotchnock at 2355 West Edge Boulevard. I too live across the road, next door to Joe and Jason, and across from Larry's place. And I'm not armed with anything, other than I would like to come in support of Larry. In the years we've lived there, we've never had an issue with him. He is not a violator of noise, he's not a violator of pollution, he's not a violator of anything, other than being a good neighbor. And to revoke his right to do business, I find that rather unethical. When you take a guy that works as hard as he does, and you're gonna take his living away from him, really, seriously, please. You guys, consider what you're doing. I mean, the neighborhood's a fine neighborhood, and you've got testimony from all these people here, neighbors, and you guys do a great job, and we really appreciate it. And if there is an issue, you can always come to all the neighbors, and you can come talk to Larry as well. But I don't see that there's an issue here. But I appreciate you guys giving me the time to speak. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'd like to say,
Yep, you need to come to the podium.
so I am Laura Dotson.
Wait, come here, yeah.
Sorry, I'm Laura Dotson. I am married to Ken. We live on the corner of Wood Edge and West Edge. So we're Nancy and Jason live across the street, and then there's one over. And we've been there for 18 years. We've always had dogs. I've always walked my dogs down the Dakota Trail. You can't even see Larry's business from the trail. You can't hear anything. If it's winter and there aren't any leaves on the trees, you might see a couple boats. I walk down Wood Edge with my dogs. You can't even tell that there's a boat business there. The only time you know is when occasionally a boat is being driven out there. And we need to have business owners here in the state. And I'm all in support of him keeping his business there.
Okay,
We're all his closest neighbors. Thank you.
thank you. And then, Mr. Beerbaum, did you?
Randy Beerbaum, 6482 Willowport. Yeah, I was originally in 2008, brought this to the city council's attention because there was no permit at all for this business. And I think you have the original one. And there were a lot of items that were not addressed that are on the list here. Now, we are in no way want to take a business away, but we want to make sure it stays small and quiet. And we live in a residential neighborhood. We live right across from behind. And yes, originally he stored boats during the winter and wrapped them. That is no longer done. And there's a few boats in the winter time when the leaves are off, but not a major problem with that. I'm not sure what the construction is. If we do
It's a
not want
pole. It's a pole building
and is that to be storing the boats so that
for working on them as well as some storage, but
it'd be less visible outside of that and be able to work in that pole barn? Is that, I understand?
Correct.
Okay. And the condition, and we want to make sure if it stays as a very small business and does not expand. And now, in this conditional use, it said not to do work on Saturday. And I understand you got to make it even when the weather's good and when the sun is shining. But yeah, there are Saturdays that we do hear the noise in our backyard when we're in that spot. So we would prefer that not to go. If the building is going to be built, that would bring things in. One of the other ones was to put additional trees in there. But if they're having a building and they put the trees in there, that would make it block it much better also. That was part of these initial resolutions here. So the main thing is we want to keep it quiet. We want to put them out of business, but we do not want the business to expand and infringe on a quiet neighborhood.
thank you, Mr. Beerbaum. Anybody else? Okay, and the applicant, do you wish to make any comments? All right, okay, then I'm going to close the public hearing and take it back to the council.
Okay.
Comments, questions?
Am I allowed to talk to them?
You can talk to whomever you want.
Thanks. Okay. Yes, that's right. If the building gets built and it is within the time frame that has been stated, so done by the end of October, would you be okay with that?
Absolutely. I wholeheartedly agree with everything that everybody said, and especially what Randy mentioned, that I don't want to see it back lose a business. That's the last thing. And we do need new business. Absolutely. We need tax base, we need income, we need to keep our neighborhoods safe and clean. Of course we do. But again, we're in a residential neighborhood. This is the only commercial application in the entire neighborhood. So as long as it doesn't become a huge boatyard repair facility, by all means, you know. I mean, this facility, the building that is being proposed is what? How many square feet is it? Is it 4 or 5 or is it 40, 50,000 square feet? How big is this?
What size is it?
It's
102 by 54.
So about 5,000 square feet.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect.
Mhm.
Perfect.
Okay, so then, should I keep going?
If you want.
Okay, I'm going to keep going. Okay. How close are you to your schedule?
we're waiting to hear tonight, and then we proceed with the demolition. And that's, and from there, we do the landscaping, and then more takes over.
Can you come to the podium, only because we don't, the sound doesn't carry very well, and it's being recorded, so it's always good to be able to hear.
Well, I'm Karen Wittig, but thank you for asking about that, because once we hear tonight, whether it goes, demolitions will start tomorrow or the next day of the building. Because we were gonna have a burn, I think someone told you about that, but they came out and said we can't do that. So we will.
I think your neighbors will appreciate that.
Yes. Yeah, and that's kind of the DNR wouldn't agree with it, so. But then the landscaping, and that is something we will do. As you see from the categories there, then Morton takes over.
So you're doing the demolition?
Yes.
Okay, so you're starting tomorrow or this week?
Yes.
Okay, because here in our packet, it says week of September 12th. So you're starting
Well, we
sooner
wanna
than
get
that.
early because
That's a good idea.
Good.
Everything emptied out of it and so on.
Okay, good idea. All right.
Okay, so it's been hard to tell going along as to whether it's schedule conflicts because of building and permits and applications versus neglect. And so we certainly don't want to take anybody's business away from them. But the council, and I think I'm speaking for the council, represents everybody. And we have complaints. And if you have complaints, you have to represent everybody in Minnetrista. You have to get that schedule done. Because if you don't, and I guess I don't want to make an open thread, but if you don't get it done, then yeah, the council, and I'm not going to put any words in anybody else's mouth, but the council won't be as lenient going into winter.
no, and there's no reason we can see that it won't be.
Okay.
Because, before we got a contractor, yes, we had a lot of questions, and we were working with 3 or 4 parties. Now we're working with 1, and they've given us a timeline, and that's been very helpful, because then we can, like we just said, we're getting done the first part with the demolition and the landscaping, and then they take over.
Okay. And you're going to ride them, right?
Absolutely.
You're going to thumbs down, ride them.
What we can
Okay.
do, Councilmember McGregor, we don't have to say yay or nay on this tonight.
Good.
We can carry this over. What I would suggest is building is supposed to start week of October 3rd. In the meantime, they will get their building permit. They will have to do all the demolition, removing whatever they need to do. So I would say, we could say, if the building material and package delivery is the week of September 26th, and also base building pad and driveway excavation, is that Morton? Who's doing that?
That's part of the landscaping people that are going to come.
Okay, so they're going to be on the week of the 19th or so. So I would say we would see significant progress by the 3rd. And if we don't, then I think we're simply going to pull it. But I think if we see this significant progress, and again, I understand with weather there may be some issues, but it sounds like this is doable.
Okay. And does that meet with both of your?
I appreciate that, and may I ask the council to at least amend the whole concept with putting some kind of ceiling on the size and scope of operation.
I think
there's a limit on the number of boats, and that still applies.
yeah. So all the initial ones still, all of the conditions on the initial one, they still apply. I think they can have up to 12 boats on site, but they will have this large building, and hopefully a lot of them, maybe not all of them, but a lot of them will be in the building. And then there's other conditions. The landscaping, I believe, is a condition. So you need to meet the original conditions. I think that's and what else?
Hours of operation are Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Let's see if we can work with that. Or very quiet on Saturdays. So, okay, hold on, Joe, just a second. Anything else? Mr. Nastepnik, you have to come to the podium though, so we can hear what people are saying.
One thing I need you to be aware of, I'm in the building business, construction practices, and sometimes the supply chain doesn't always arrive when you want it.
We've
So-
got that, yes,
Okay.
good comment, yes.
So please be aware, I know Mortensen is a very good pole building, okay? But if something happens where their steel gets delayed,
Right,
this causes a delay in the project. But you still get your foundation work in, you still get your
Exactly.
landscaping in, but the initial construction of the building could be delayed because of the supply chain.
And if
We're
that's,
waiting
if that's the
anywhere from
case,
8
then
to
Morton
12
can
weeks
send
for
a letter
stuff,
in.
So
yeah.
If
we
that's,
know.
yeah, if that's the case, Morton Building can send a letter in that says, here's a
Okay.
supply chain issue.
I just wanted the council to be aware.
Yeah, no, we're
No,
aware of that. And the other, like I said, the demolition, if that's done, and the tree and the landscaping and the building pad, if that's all in, we know it's gonna happen, and we understand the supply chain dilemmas. Thank you. All right, so council, is that, so they have to meet the current CUP conditions, okay? They have to start this demolition and do all the landscaping and driveway and all of that we've mentioned here this evening. Come back if on the 3rd, if there's some delay, then we need a letter from Morton saying why it's delayed. And we can understand that. We know that in this day and age how that works. So with that,
And if it's delayed, a new
Timeline.
calendar of what are those dates now pushed back to? So we know a completion projected.
and I would think, yeah, Morton can probably provide you with that,
Right.
depending on the supply. It's said in our packet that there shouldn't be an issue, but we understand that there might be. So we'll come back on the 3rd and hopefully get an update. Okay, so keep in touch with staff, and staff kind of keep in touch with them so we get an update on the 3rd. All right? Okay?
I would like to add one thing.
Sure.
I don't think, and just speaking for the council, I don't think any of us here want to take away a small business. But you have to look at, this went back to 2008. The council back then gave them 3 years to build this shed or whatever they're building. And now it's been, 14, 15 years later. I have an issue with that. So I think the council has been extremely generous with extending it at this point when it's been going on since 2008. There has been complaints and other things too. So I hope you follow the schedule and you do what you say you're going to do this time, and it's successful and everybody's happy.
All right. Joe, really quick, 1 minute.
If you want to refer back to 2008, I mentioned that Larry's home burnt down. If you've ever gone through that, there's a lot of trauma. It takes years to get past.
I think Brian can attest to that.
But I had to keep going.
Yes,
too, you know,
yes.
so-
I know, you still keep going. You know, now you gotta build a new house so something else gets put on.
Sure,
Thank you.
I understand. Thank you. All right. With that, that concludes that item. We're not going to take any action on it tonight. But Ron, can I just add, do we have to I closed the public hearing, so we
Yeah.
can close the public hearing, right?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, you've closed the public hearing, so that's done. I think what you're talking about is tabling consideration of the resolution until October 3rd.
Do you want a motion to that
Yes.
effect? Thank you. Ron wants a motion, so is there a motion to table this until October 3rd?
So moved.
Thank you, Kathleen. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. McGregor. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, motion passes 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Beatty. So we'll move on to our next business item, and that's awarded General Services Task Order Agreement with, I'm going to say AES 2. I want to call him ACE because it's AES 2 is kind of a mouthful. Okay.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. It's actually AE2S.
Thank you.
So,
See, there you go.
yeah.
That's
we'll get it eventually, but I'll hand it over to Mr. Peters over there as he's kind of facilitating this. Really what we want to do is just bring this to light. This is kind of a new process of what you'll see. You'll see these task orders come up for general things. The one that you have tonight before you is just for general services questions, things like that we have so they can provide us that guidance on certain aspects of our water system. You'll likely see some other ones in the near future about the well project and other ones. So it's just a mechanism that we can track billing and that type of thing. So I'll hand it over to Mr. Peters.
Thank you. Yeah, Madam Mayor, Council, as Mr. Kruger said there, this task order is going to identify most of the task orders that you'll be seeing coming forward are going to be similar to this, are going to be for specific city projects, the wells, drilling, water treatment plants, piping and placement, stuff like that. There'll be a lot of description, details of those projects, what staff's assigned, spreadsheets showing what staff, what time each staff member will be there. This first few months of getting to work with their staff, them working with us, that's what this is going to entail. It's going to be an open-ended task order so that we can have a mechanism to track and be able to pay them. So this general service agreement will cover just that general questions that's going to come from our staff, myself, you guys, other staff members that on questions such as, hey, we got to, Mr. Pollack might have something going on at the treatment plant that's not quite right. So we need to get their expertise. Hey, they come out, look at it. They need a mechanism to bill us for that, so it'll be on this. Other questions might come from, our new well or our existing wells or water systems. So that's going to be used for this. One thing they are putting together is a report for tomorrow night in conjunction with WSB's reporting on the water main through the Westwood Morning View, Eastview area. So that'll be used in that too. This work order will be starting here now from service from August 8th until the end of the year. Not to exceed $10,000 billing at their hourly rates. We'll probably see this probably being used up this year just because I say it's going to be a learning curve on both their part and our part, them getting to know our system, us getting to know them. As this goes on for the next year, there'll be another one for a general issue. Don't see it probably being used as much once we get projects set and in place. So, but like I say, just for those oddball questions that might come up. Most of the questions probably won't be charged, but if it's something that they need to do some investigation, like I say, similar to the water main replacement stuff, where they need to do some research, have some hourly time built into it, that's what this is for.
Thank you. Yeah, good. I have one comment. I'm fine with this. However, I want to make it clear that this is for staff, mayor, and council, not for residents. In other words, a resident does not have free rein to call our consultants. They need to talk to staff, and then staff can talk to our consultants. We're paying, these are tax dollars, these that we're paying for, and these aren't open, it's not open to the public, okay? I mean, am I right? Are you in agreement? Okay, thank you, because it can be abused. And I want to make sure that the people that are talking to our engineers, whether it's AE2S or WSB or Ron, these are our consultants, and we talk to them, not our residents. Our residents talk to us. We get the information that they might need, and we pass it on to them. Okay? Okay, thank you. That's all. So, any other questions or comments? Yep. All right. Then with that, is there a motion to approve the General Services Task Order Agreement with AE2S for the period of August 8th through December 31st, 2022 at a not to exceed total of $10,000?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Chumperland. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Refkin. Any further questions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, motion passes 5-0. So that concludes our business items, so we'll move on to staff reports. Mr. Peters, again.
Yes, thank you again, Madam Mayor. Give you a brief update. We do have some of the results back from WSB on the well test pumping. We had very good results. If I can get this computer to work. So basically on the Mount Simon, so as you're aware, we did 3 pump tests. on 3 different aquifers out there. So the Mount Simon, which is the deepest, that well was 765 feet deep. The casing is 640 feet deep. We have our static water level at 205 feet. The available drawdown is quite significant at 440 feet. The specific capacity was about 7.9 gallons per minute a foot of drawdown, which is equivalent to 500 gallons estimated drawdown at 63 feet. There's a 440 feet available. So that, I mean, we very easily will reach the 1,000, 1,500 if we need to. The Tunnel City water walk that was there, that was at 600 feet. Casing at that point was 430.
No, the Jordan.
No, this is the Tunnel City,
Oh,
the one in the middle.
okay. Yeah.
So the available drawdown there was only 218 feet and a mere 2.6 gallons per minute. We can still get our 500 gallons of estimated drawdown but that is for using 192 feet of the 218 feet. We were looking at this as a secondary well. This one, I say we table this, would be my opinion, put this one as a reserve for the future. And then the Jordan would be, that was at the shallowest, that was at 358 feet. Casing was only 288. Static water level was 131 feet. Available drawdown was 136 feet, but we got 25.3 gallons per minute per foot of drawdown, which is great. I mean, that's at least 1,000, and that's only at 40 feet. So you could double that, not quite double it, but I mean, significantly get a lot of water out of there once everything gets calculated. And this is now undeveloped, so this is just test pumping what was there. So they go down and develop, they'll blast the canyon even more, a little bit better. They'll get great numbers. What we're going to be looking at probably is a Mount Simon well and a Jordan backup, because Jordan will be first using that. Mount Simon will be a secondary, but we want something that's going to be equivalent in using. So when one well is out of service for repair, the other one
That
goes.
was
So.
backwards, right?
Backwards.
The Jordan is primary, the Mount Simon is backup?
Did I say the backwards? I'm sorry. Yes, Jordan. Sorry.
Too many wells.
Glad you're paying attention. Just checking with it. Yes, Jordan primary, Mount Simon secondary. So it's all good news. We did get some preliminary numbers back on the Jordan, but we'll kind of wait till we get all of the numbers back. So the water is good. I mean, there is, the issues with the iron, the manganese, and some magnesium, but the good news is, with the Jordan, it looked like there's a little radium, or the radon, but no radium 226, 228. That's all good, which, the Mount Simon has some of that, but everything's looking favorable at this point, so.
Good. So what I asked Jasper is maybe at our next work session or council meeting, whatever, what I'd like next steps, and then a schedule, like where are we going to be 5 months from now, that kind of, so next steps and then the schedule. I think that'll be really important. And how soon can we move along? And okay, so then I think my guess is next steps, we're going to have to talk to the DNR regarding the Mount Simon, right?
Madam Mayor, if I could address that. So you'll likely see a task order from AE2S to do that, and they'll have that
Okay.
all outlined
Okay.
September 6th. So
Okay.
we could either talk about it at either the work session or the regular meeting.
Okay.
But they're going to look at that. They have a process defined, that a very good well person that we met with that has a
Okay.
process that they'll go through, and we'll get it all dialed in, and they'll have a task order for that project to see
Alright.
that to fruition. There will be some modeling and things like that need to occur when we size the treatment plant as well. So
Right.
that'll take a little bit more time, but they're working with WSB to get that data over so they can start looking at that too. So task order on September 6th, which will outline that process.
Good.
And AE2S will deal with the DNR on, I guess, switching our Mount Simon wells?
Correct.
Yep. All right. Any other?
I need a liaison.
I'm going to be there.
You're going to be there? Okay,
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. I'm sorry, I thought I told you that, but okay.
You-
I'll be at the planning commission meeting.
Perfect.
Yep.
Thank you.
It's my turn, so I'll be there. And I know that Mac and Tunes will be on
Yep.
there, so I should talk to you about that afterwards. Okay. Any other? Otherwise, I'll start under council reports. So first of all, Jasper and I had the pleasure of going on a tour of the regional Lake Minnetonka Regional Park and Carver Park with Marge Beard and with Luke Skinner. So they invited us, and it was very informative. It was very fun, and we learned a lot of new things. So it's interesting, and it's wonderful that we have this very great resource, I mean, in our backyard. I mean, this is just fabulous. As Brian had mentioned earlier, we have Gale Woods, we have Kingswood, we have the regional park right in our city, but then right across the highway, we also have Carver Park. So, and the trail is going in, and the underpass has been there for several years, but now they're also adding that trail. So the trail will connect the regional park with Carver Park. And that'll also be, and for the people in Woodland Cove, I can imagine that you're quite excited about that because you're right there. So that's wonderful. The other thing I talked to Jasper about is changing our January meeting to January 9th. And I know because I think it just fits better for all of our schedules. Now, what we'll do is we won't make that resolution tonight. We'll probably do that in December when we do our total annual schedule. But I just want to give heads up, we will be making that, it'll be the second Monday in January for our first meeting in January. And then Kathleen also, I think it was like the next day or whatever, had a request of if we could move meetings after a holiday, after a Monday holiday, if we could move the meeting rather than to Tuesday to Wednesday. What I'd like to suggest, we can talk about this at a work session, just real quick though, we can make changes to our calendar at any time. So if there's a conflict of schedules or whatever, we could change that. Otherwise, we have to go back and we have to make an ordinance change. So we might just kind of keep that in mind if there's a conflict. Now we're not going to change it for September 6th, but in the future, if we wanted to change it, we can do that by a resolution rather than changing the ordinance, because it may not always be a problem. With that, I will be attending the Planning Commission meeting, and did I already? Oh, and then Chief Falls and I, we did attend several of the National Night Out parties. They were less attended this year than in the past. We were somewhat surprised.
It was really hot.
It was really hot.
Out.
It was really hot. And poor officers and poor McGruff. And yeah, it was really hot. So we got out of the car, we said hi and whatever, and then McGruff got back in the car where it was air conditioned. Poor McGruff. Kudos to him. Thank you very much. Please tell McGruff. I won't say who it was. Thank you very much. No, but it was still a nice time meeting people. Other than that, I don't think I have anything. Any other reports?
Old news being I wasn't here. I attended the July Pioneer Center Creek. That's when Brian and I talked about being here tonight.
Right.
Thanks, Brian, again. I know you're short-staffed in your department some places too, so you put in some extra time. Thank you. Also attended the Planning Commission meeting in July, and will be attending Pioneer Center Creek meeting for August this Thursday. And I do plan on being here tomorrow night.
Okay.
For the neighborhood meeting.
Oh, yeah, we have a neighborhood meeting both tomorrow night and Wednesday night.
Is
So.
Wednesday still on? Because it's not on the calendar. At least it didn't get logged into my calendar.
It is. It is.
Okay.
We'll check that. I think
Okay.
I think they were sent out as invites, but we'll
Yeah,
double
I got
check.
both links, but I looked today and only the one on Tuesday night was on there. So.
Okay. No, they both are still on the
Okay.
North Arm Road. That project is on Wednesday.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
And I know we'll have somebody so Gary will be there, Jasper will be there, right, Gary? You're going to be there?
Yes.
and I think Adam and Allison, of course, will be there. And I believe somebody from whatever, AE2S will be there as well?
Correct, on
Okay.
Tuesday night.
So we'll be well-staffed. I'll be there, of course, so we'll be well-staffed. Are you going to be at the Wednesday one?
Yeah, I'm in both.
You're going to be at both, okay. And we've posted it, right?
Yes.
Okay, just in case. All right. Thank you.
Okay, I attended the membership drive for the Gillespie Center, and we now have a brochure that, the Gillespie Center has a monthly brochure that they put out, but it's for members. This is an actual membership drive brochure, and I have put them all over the place. I put them in the library, in Jubilee, in Scotty B's. I've gotten permission from the laundromat, a number of places, and I'd like to put some in our city hall.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. Yeah,
that's what I have.
thank you. That's it. Kathleen?
Jasper, Lisa, and I attended the Woodland Cove
Oh,
neighborhood
thank
meeting.
you. Forgot about that one.
That went very well.
Was very well
It was
attended.
very well attended.
Full
there's probably
house.
like 80 people here.
Oh,
it
that
very
was
well
full
attended.
house.
Stand by the hallway.
Yeah, yeah.
And Allie got me the link, so those are posted on the neighborhood website, and they
Yeah.
went out to everyone in the HOA as well. So if they're not on the Facebook page, they still saw it. There has not been any residual comments, so I think everyone was as happy as they can be with the results of the meeting. I will not be at either of the neighborhood meetings this week.
That's fine.
That's all I have.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. All right, then we are concluding our meeting, and if I have a motion to adjourn, we can all go home.
So moved.
Thank you, Kathleen, and is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ann. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion passes 5-0. We are adjourned until September 6th.